Well, another very warm welcome back, all my vintage dirt bike loving YouTubers, and thanks again for retuning to Classic Dirt Bike TV. Now, thanks to you, we're heading towards the 12,000 subscriber total, which is quite amazing really when you think of it, that I only really started my YouTube channel and uploaded my videos just for something to keep me occupied through those long Scottish winters, and I never thought for a minute that the channel would become as popular as it is with viewers around the globe. So thanks to each and every one of you for your continuing support. Okay, coming up in this next video, we're going to take a look at a quite nice looking 1979 Montesa Cappra 250. So without any further delay, let's jump straight into the video. Now, you may remember that I did post a video on this particular Montesa on my channel just a few years ago, but it's such a nice example of a 79 250 Cappra, and again, it's not a bike that you see every day, so that's one of the reasons it's got to be worth another quick look around. Now, the story goes that this particular bike was stored in the previous owner's workshop for a number of years before the now current owner, who then purchased it, and these short video clips and pictures were taken just prior to the new owner putting the bike onto a racetrack for the very first time since the bike was mothballed. Now, in terms of the bike's originality, it's about as near as damn it to an authentic 1979 Montesa 250, and as far as I'm aware, 99% of this bike is in stock form from that year, although the handlebars are the one part on this machine that is not from that 1970s era. Although, mind you, you'd be very hard pressed to find a 79 250 Montesa in this kind of condition these days, and if you did come across a perfect example of one of these Spanish Twinshockers, then the chances are that it'll be found in a motorcycle museum or private bike collection, as very few of these bikes are still being used as classic racers in this modern day. Now, the engine was a single cylinder piston port two-stroke, as of course these were the days before things like fancy reed valves and power valve technology on two-stroke motocrossers. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, as I remember these Cappras had a 4-speed gearbox and a standard wet multi-plate clutch, and I'm sure that the ignition was by way of a Motoplat CDI electronic system, and as far as I'm aware, these were quite rugged and reliable little power plants, and a very good rider could still make this little 250 hustle if he was prepared to work that two-stroke motor. But that forward-facing Kickstarter is of course a Montesa trademark on many of their off-road racers, but it's quite surprising how many original Montesa parts are still fitted to this bike after 42 years, although it's good that the bike's not being locked away and that the new owner is using it as it was originally intended for racing at these types of motocross race events. But when you look at this exhaust expansion chamber, there's virtually not a ding, dent or even abrasion on the pipe, so maybe the bike's not seen much track action in its lifetime, because I suppose if it did, there would certainly be some residual indentations on what looks like this almost brand new pipe. Now, the tailpipe again is the correct part for this 79 250, and as you can see, it's in as good nick as the rest of this bike, and it's almost in pristine condition. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the one single part that's not original to this bike are these handlebars. Now, the owner told me that he still has the bike's original bars, although these were not suitable for his particular riding style or stature, so he then replaced them with these more modern style Renthals just to make the riding position a bit more user friendly. But once again, the bike's front forks, as I remember, were quite adequate for their time, although they were a bit soft on the damping side if the tracks were bumpy. But you have to remember that this was 1979 and suspension technology just didn't have the expertise and the science that we now enjoy on our off-roaders. But of course the old school drum brakes on these Montesas, as it would have been another few years further down the line before we started seeing hydraulic disc brakes fitted to our motocross machines. Although there was one slight flaw in this particular bike, with evidence of a fork clamp repair on this right hand fork leg, but other than that the bike still has its original made Spanish alloy wheels, which is another quite rare item to see still fitted on these older Montesa Cappras. Now, with regards to the bike's rear shocks, I'm not entirely sure if these are the original 79 items, although they certainly do look period correct for that time, with these remote reservoirs. But as most of the rest of the bike appears to be correct, the chances are that this rear suspension also is authentic for their time. Now, even the bike's paintwork on this rear steel swing arm is in remarkable condition for a 42-year-old machine, but as you'd expect, the bike's rear drive chain is brand new, and I don't suppose any rider would take a 42-year-old bike onto a racetrack with its original chain still intact. But as with many of these European motocrossers of the period, plastic fuel tanks again were widely used on many of the bikes from the late 1970s and early 1980s, and these Montesa bikes were certainly no different in that respect, and these fuel cells held more than enough gas for even the longest of race motos. Now, once again, another piece of Montesa originality on this bike is this proper 1979 Montesa fuel cap, which again is quite rare, as many of these caps are generally replaced during the lifetime of the bike. But not only is the tank in pristine condition, the bike's seat is also still perfect after all these years, and again more originality on this bike, as the bike still has its 1979 plastic Montesa mudguards on the front and rear, which are more of the parts that normally are replaced during a bike's life on the track. So in that respect, you can probably work out that this little Spanish racer has not had quite a hard life since it was built in 1979. Although, to be fair to the bike's new owner, it would be very easy just to refit the original handlebars and then give the bike a quick wash and scrub up, and then use it as a show bike or even concourse machine for entering best bike competitions. But the new owners decided against that particular route and decided to race the bike instead. And of course, that way we all get to see another 1979 Montesa Cappra taking part in classic and vintage race events. But this is still a very nice example of one of these quite rare 79 Montesas, and as I said, these are becoming very rare to catch a glimpse of as the years roll by. So we've had a quick look at the bike and talked a little about its different parts, so let's just get the new owner to fire the bike up, and let's all have a quick listen to what it sounds like. Well, I do hope you enjoyed that quite brief look around that very nice and quite original looking 1979 Montesa Cappra 250. It's certainly a bike that you don't see very often at race events these days, and it's nice to know that there still is one or two still being used as weekend racers. Okay, coming up in my next video posting, we're going to classic racing once again, and this time we're going to take a look at a few races from the 2010 Blencarn Classic Scramble event. Now, there's some really good racing involved in this next video, so I do hope you will continue to subscribe to my channel in order that you don't miss out on future video postings. Okay, until the next time, everybody continue to be safe and well, and we'll all get together again quite soon to talk about more vintage iron right here on Classic Dirt Bike TV.